We are going into this Beyonce story. I don't know how you feel about country music. I listen to all genres of music. So I like some country, mainly newer country, right? With the exception of that Dolly Parton song. But other than that, mainly newer country. I didn't cover this story earlier because I actually wanted to be fair and listen to the album. So Beyonce did release a country music album called Cowboy Carter, and I finally got to listen to the songs on Spotify. There were two songs in particular that I was very fond of. The Texas Hold'em song, which is, I think, the first single. I really liked that song. I thought it had a good beat. I was like, yeah, you know. And there's also a song on that album that she has with Miley Cyrus. It's a duet. I forget the name of that one. I thought I wrote it down, but I forgot. But that song's pretty cool. But overall, I will say that before we get into what happened, I think that if you're going into this with the mindset of hearing a traditional country album, that's not what you're going to hear. Some of the songs on the album don't sound like country songs. Some of the songs on the album actually have more of an indie rock kind of feel. In fact, that song with Miley Cyrus, I feel like kind of has an indie rock kind of feel. So just giving you a heads up about that when you go and listening to it. There's a song on the album with, what's the girl's name? No, she's not really in a song. Dolly Parton's on the song, on the album briefly. Willie Nelson was on there briefly, but that was more like a 30-second speech or something like that. But there is a remake of the Beatles song Blackbird, which I love that song by the Beatles. Again, that's not a country song. So I don't want you to think all the songs on the album are country, because they're not. And some people had a problem with that. And some people had a problem with other things. So Beyonce actually did reach number 1 on the country music charts with Texas Hold'em, which is historic. We're going to go ahead and get into what happened after that release and why some of these country music radio stations did not want to play Beyonce's music. Oh, what a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive in this here.
In fact, one Oklahoma-based radio station sparked outrage this week for initially refusing to play Beyonce's new single. A fan who requested the song received an email reply that read, quote, "Hi, we do not play Beyonce on KYKC as we are a country music station." Well, the station's owner later told NBC News that it was unaware Beyonce had released country songs when the request was made. But let's take a step back here for a moment. According to Forbes, as of Tuesday, only 8 of the 150 stations that report to Billboard's country airplay chart reported having played Texas Hold'em in its first day. And none said they had put her other single, 16 Carriages, on the air. And this is not the first time the country music industry has been at odds with Beyonce. She faced an intense backlash in 2016 for daring to perform at the CMAs alongside the Chicks.
Pause. I remember watching this live. So I do remember, I don't watch award shows anymore, but I do remember seeing this. And there's a couple of things that went along here. I actually have a brief op-ed as someone who was actually present at that event, and they're going to tell you some of the things they heard in the crowd. So Beyonce had a twofold here. Like, number one, people see a Black woman singing at the Country Music Awards with country music artists, which is very strange considering that Black people, country music actually started with Black people. This goes to show you how much people know about the history of this country. But then also the Dixie Chicks, which they changed their names to the Chicks. The Dixie Chicks, I told you before on this show, they were canceled, meaning that they had opinions about the war in Iraq. They were not for it. They spoke out about that. And the next thing I knew, the Dixie Chicks were done. I mean, these women couldn't get a venue for like 10 years. So when I say they were canceled, they were really canceled. So there's that too. But there's a lot going on here that I'm going to dive into as well. But I just wanted you to really hear that part, because I want you to understand that it's not like this was Beyonce's first time being introduced to the country music industry. She did have this performance with the Dixie Chicks at the CMAs in 2016.
Let's be very clear here. This is just the very latest flashpoint of the long and ugly history of racism within the country music establishment. You're probably familiar with some recent episodes, like when rapper Lil Nas X saw his viral hit Old Town Road removed from Billboard's Hot Country Songs on the grounds that it, quote, did not embrace enough elements of today's country music. And there have been even more foul and even more outrageous controversies after it was reported in 2021 that country superstar Morgan Wallen was caught yelling the N-word on camera. He immediately saw a 1,200% increase in digital album sales. And
pause for a second. So this part right here, another thing that I want to mention, is this to say that this only happens in country music? Someone yells the N-word or whatever, or artist yells the N-word? No. No, it's not. But it seems to only make headlines when it happens in country music. So just keep that in mind.
A 1,200% increase in digital album sales. And just last year, Jason Aldean filmed a music video for his infamous grievance anthem decrying Black Lives Matter outside a Tennessee courthouse where a black man was attacked by a mob and lynched in 1927. For years, for decades really, white country music fans have sent a clear message. Black artists do not belong in this genre, which is racist, obviously, but also ironic given how musicologists speculate that the precursor to the banjo, the cornerstone of country music, originated in Africa and arrived on American shores during the 17th century within.
Exactly. See, this is the part that people don't know, the history. And it's not just country music, rock and roll. Where do you think that came from? Who do you think started that? You think it was Elvis Presley? Elvis stole from everybody. Everybody. Now, Beyonce steals from people too. That's the other thing. This is something that has continued to happen throughout the music industry. But yeah, a lot of people just don't know the history. Country music, unlike the other genres, does tend to be more conservative. And you're going to see examples of that, not just with Beyonce, but there's a couple other artists I want to show you further along as well that have also received pretty bad backlash.
Slave people taken from West and Central Africa. According to Alice Randall, professor of African American Studies at Vanderbilt University, Black country music goes back to the arrival of the first Black child to an enslaved African woman in the Americas. Black people have always been a part of folk and country music. Ray Charles, Tracy Chapman, Charlie Pride, Darius Rucker. And to the conservatives who claim that Beyonce is stealing your genre, you're making her point for her. This new album, Act 2, is the second installment of a 3-volume project that is literally about reclaiming Black roots in musical genres that have been co-opted and whitewashed. So do yourself a favor. Go listen to Texas Hold'em. It's good country music, and to anyone who says otherwise, well, bless your heart.
So that was I'm in There from MSNBC. Again, like I said, I didn't want to talk about this until I actually listened to the album. And I'm here to tell you again, not all of the songs on the album are country songs. Some of them do have more of an indie rock feel. But there were a couple songs on the album that I did like. Now I want to get to this segment here because it wasn't just about the backlash from the radio station that she received. But one of the things that is also highlighted is the fact that she did give credit to other people in the industry. And I think that's important too. Other artists that you may not have been familiar with. Let's dive into this part here.
Last week, Beyonce became the first Black woman to top Billboard's Hot Country chart and got the stamp of approval from the queen of country music herself, the great Dolly Parton.
That's because Dolly Parton is a real one. All the people that are hating, Dolly Parton is a real one, right? And she faced her own issues when she first started in country music as well, right? But she's pretty as real as they get.
Doing so. The most Grammy-winning artist in history knows how to knock down barriers for herself. But Beyonce is also giving some deserved shine to other Black country and folk artists, like Rhiannon Giddens, who plays banjo on Texas Hold'em. Giddens wrote about the Black roots of country music this week, reminding us enslaved people of the African diaspora created the banjo in the Caribbean in the 1600s. This is historical fact. The hype around Bey's new single is also amplifying the many Black artists already in country music. It's the Beyonce boost in streams for Black women country artists, including a 275% increase. Wow. For a pioneer of the genre, Linda Martell, the first Black woman artist to play the Grand Ole Opry back in 1969. I'm joined now by songwriter and producer Alice Randall, the first Black woman to co-write a #1 country single and the author of the upcoming memoir, My Black Country, which also has a companion album. It is so great to talk with you, Alice Randall. And so I just want to start by getting your take on all of the sort of contretemps around Beyonce charting in country. I have to play this. This is John Schneider. He used to be on a show that used to glorify the Confederate flag on a car. Here he is. By the way, he's from New York, but here he is.
Oh, let me cut that part. I forgot it plays that part. Oh yeah, she didn't play it. So the name of the show, they messed up that clip. I forgot. The name of the show was called The Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know why she didn't just say The Dukes of Hazzard show. But yeah, he said something negative about it. But of course, like, why am I surprised here? Now, let me bring up something else really quick before I bring up some of the other women that she included to be a part of this album who are also country musicians. They're Black women country musicians, but you probably have not heard of them. Let's not get it twisted. This is not to say that Beyonce is not talented. She is incredibly talented. But had it not been for who she is and how famous she is, would anyone else that just started in the country music industry, Black woman, would they have shot to #1 like that? Probably not. You know, it's different when you're Beyonce and you say, I have a new album. Oh, and it's a country album. You already have a fan base. So people are going to at least try to check it out and hear what it sounds like. So Beyonce did have an edge that these women that you're going to hear from that are included to be part of the album did not have, because they did not have name recognition. So when you have name recognition and you do that type of switch, you know, Justin Timberlake did this too at one point. He switched over to country. I don't know what happened to him. But he tried that one time. Other people have tried to pivot. You know, I think Kid Rock at one point, he started off as rap/rock, and then he moved over to country with Sheryl Crow kind of, or whatever. You know, people have done those things, but I think when you already have that name recognition, it is going to be a little bit easier for you than it would for these women right here. But it was nice of Beyonce to include them on the song Blackbird. I want you to hear what they had to say.
It's really special. You know, I honestly didn't know the importance of that song until after we recorded it. And so it just made it that more special. And all of us girls, we were texting this morning just about how fun it's been and how cool it is that we get to experience this together.
So these women, the women that you see here on this picture, so Tiara Kennedy, Tanner Adele, Brittany Spencer, and Raina Roberts, they all sang on the song Blackbird, the remake of Blackbird with Beyonce. These were already women that sang in country music. You probably just never heard of them because they don't have the name recognition. So there are Black singers in the country music business. I don't want you to think there aren't, right? So again, it's just, you know, you got to hear from these people. Sometimes you got to hear from the people that are not big names, the people you may not know about
how fun it's been and how cool it is that we get to experience this together. This is such an important song, and I'm so thankful to Beyonce for including us. And I think that it's spreading such a special message to the world and hopefully to young girls that want to get into country music one day.
Yeah, Paul McCartney wrote that song back in the 60s for the Beatles, and he wrote it not about a Black bird, but a Black woman in the context of the civil rights movement. And then Beyonce now has a cover of it. Holly, let me come to you. I learned from you when we spoke a year ago about.
Just wanted you to hear that part there. And then I want to bring up something else because we're going to get to this issue, a couple of issues that people had with Beyonce entering the country music scene. One was her attire, the way that she's dressed. They felt like she was a little too scandalous. So there's that. There's also the racial issue. We're going to touch on both of those. And I want to take you back to an op-ed for someone who actually saw what was said about Beyonce when she was a part of that Dixie Chicks performance in 2016. I saw Beyonce get booed at the CMAs. I've been waiting for Cowboy Carter. So she says here, let's see. As soon as I heard those horns begin playing and heard Beyonce say the word Texas, I knew that we at the CMAs were in for a real treat of her performing her then hit Daddy Lessons. Even better, she was performing it with the Chicks, who I told you guys I know of as the Dixie Chicks. The group I grew up thinking was everything. And then I heard a woman in the row ahead of me yell, "Get that black bee off the stage." Just wanted you to hear that part. Now, Beyonce has responded, and this is what she said. And then I'm going to show you some other artists in country music that went through similar situations as Beyonce. Beyonce responds to racial criticism of country album as she unveils Cowboy Carter cover. Let me dive in here. And it says, I feel so honored to be the first Black woman with the #1 single on Hot Country Songs charts. However, the Cuffed hitmaker noted that the color of her or any other artist's skin should not play a role in whatever genre music they decide to create, potentially referencing her Country Music Awards performance in 2016. The singer said the album idea came from a time she did not feel welcome. The star performed her Lemonade track, Daddy Lessons, alongside the Chicks and was subjected to racist abuse at the time. Because of that experience, I did a deeper dive into the history of country music and studied our rich musical archive. It feels good to see how music can unite so many people around the world while also amplifying the voices of some of the people who have dedicated so much of their lives educating on our musical history. The criticism I have faced when I first entered this genre forced me to propel past the limitations that were put on me. Act 2 is a result of challenging myself and taking my time to bend and blend genres together to create this body of work. Okay, so that is the response there from Beyonce. I told you there are two issues or two criticisms that people had about Beyonce entering country music field. One of them was racial, and one of them had to do with too sexual. You're too sexual of a being, her attire. Let's start with the race issue first. It wasn't just her. Kane Brown, who was actually more of a newer country music artist, hip, a little bit more the edgy, newer country sound. I like his music. I think it's pretty bass. He's biracial, and he had to experience this in the country music scene. Kane Brown reveals how he dealt with being called racial slurs as a child. It mentions this part here. And this was the interesting part about him. I'm biracial. I did not know that until I was 7 or 8 years old. I thought I was full white, which honestly, I can't even really say because I didn't see colors. His mother, Tabitha, is white. His dad, who was never in the picture, is Black and part Cherokee. So take a look at Kane Brown, right? So obviously, again, Kane is biracial. So let me tell you about some of the things that happened to him when he entered country music. And I think I have to go to click here for more for this one. Yeah, here it is. Brown, 25, who launched his career on social media, crooning covers of popular songs and sharing them with his wide network, grew up in Tennessee and Georgia, where country music roots run deep. Brown was heavily influenced by Nashville stars that came before him and took to Facebook and YouTube to share his love for music and grow his fan base on his own. My fans have said they clicked my videos because they thought I was going to be rapping or something. Then I started singing country and they say they just kind of fell in love. What If's singer told Billboard in a March interview. It goes on to say here, though he has found success in country music industry, Brown is still no stranger to having hateful racial slurs tossed at him on social media. And it goes on to say here, when I first entered country, I started getting some of these comments like he's an N-word, stuff like that. But I didn't get into country music just to prove a point. I try to stay away from all negativity. Now, you can call me whatever you want. It just brushes off of me. So again, Kane Brown, who's obviously, he's biracial. He received racial slurs when he came into country music. But there's more. Some people forget, but Darius Rucker also went through this experience. Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish. Remember when Darius decided that he was going to go country? Remember when I said it made sense because he has that sound, right? You know, the Hootie guy, I only want to be with you. Remember? I only want to be with that guy. So Darius Rucker, when he decided to go country, there's Darius there. I want to show you one of the things that he said here. Darius Rucker, and then also Mickey Guyton, more Black country artists have been candid about the racism they have faced in the genre. When Rucker made the transition from frontman for the rock band Hootie and the Blowfish to country superstar, he had to fire back at trolls. After performing at the Grand Ole Opry in 2013, a social media user tweeted at Rucker telling him to leave country to the white folk. Tucker is from South Carolina. I said Tucker. Rucker is from South Carolina. Wow. Is this 2013 or 1913? I'll take my Grand Ole Opry membership and leave your racism. Wow. Fans then rallied around Rucker and the singer made it clear he had no plans to stop putting out records. Gotta go to bed. This has been a hilarious night. If any haters think I care what you think, I don't make music for you. So don't listen. So that was Darius Rucker. And then there's Mickey Guyton. I thought there was one more. That's Kane Brown again. K. Michelle. So you guys can see there's other Charlie Pride, of course, we know. Now we're going to go to the other issue. What's really interesting is that this isn't the first time that Darius Rucker had to go through this. When Darius Rucker was lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish, he had talked about this before too. Oftentimes they would book gigs and the band would show up to perform locally. This is before they were famous. They were just local at that point. They was local. So when they were doing these gigs around South Carolina, you know, everybody was all cool with them. And Darius Rucker said as soon as he would show up, they would say, whoa, where are you going? And he was like, I'm going to go get on stage. I'm with the band. No, you're not with the band. Yes, I am the lead singer. I'm Darius Rucker. So they weren't expecting Hootie and the Blowfish to have a Black singer. I guess he had figured at some point we had moved past that. Country does tend to be a little bit more conservative, even when it comes to the complaints about Beyonce's clothing and her attire and that she's not covered up enough. I want to remind you of someone who was very popular stepping into the country scene, and that is Shania Twain. Some of you may not remember this. I'm old enough too. I'm dating myself. But when Shania Twain first entered the country music scene, she also received backlash from traditional, country music fans. Why are you showing your belly button? Why is this woman wearing these mid-drift tops? Raise your hand in the chat if you remember that, right? So this is just a reminder. Shania Twain's risk paid off with Any Man of Mine. Her classic hit reached #1 this week in 1995. So that was 1995. A lot of people forget this. This was a big deal because the fact she wore a midriff, right? Are you prepared to watch the shocking video by Shania Twain? Beware, she's frolicking in a field surrounded by horses and wagon wheels. And even though she's wearing jeans and a denim jacket, you can see her belly button. Yes, the video for Any Man of Mine and Twain's entrance into country music caused some ripples of controversy. Nonetheless, the fans won out and the song became Twain's first #1 country hit this week in 1995. How many of you remember this, right? And it goes on to say here, she went on to make several hits, right? So it goes on to say here, Twain's allure was greatly enhanced by her videos, which truly were revolutionary for the time for country music. She was hectored. Yeah, she was hectored at the time of the Any Man of Mine video, which its belly button barrage for ruining country music by exposing her navel. Shania Twain went on to become a very successful country music artist. So what it goes to show you is that time and time again, country music is more conservative when you compare it to other music genres. It's more conservative than rock and roll. It's more conservative than jazz. It's more conservative than blues, more conservative than rap and R&B. It's a whole different thing. Now, does that make the critiques that are done through that genre correct or right? No, it doesn't. I would have thought as years have gone by, things would have started to change. We also have to remember people like Johnny Cash, who also received pushback in the country music industry. They thought he was kind of weird. They're like, why is this guy wearing black all the time? They also wanted to cancel Johnny Cash because he was performing at prisons. But I thought that's what the Bible wants you to do, though, right? You're supposed to reach out to all those that have sinned. Doesn't that include people in prison? They wanted to cancel him. There's been a number of people that have gone through this with country music. I think what has happened with Beyonce is I think this is the first time that Beyonce has received this type of backlash within her career with an album that she has released. And I don't think Beyonce was used to that, but I think she was, expecting something to come from it, considering what happened with the performance with the Dixie Chicks, right? But I would like to see country music evolve. I would like to see it be a little bit more welcoming to something a little bit different. Things don't always have to remain the same. Rock and roll has changed throughout the years. Hip hop has changed throughout the years. Jazz has changed throughout the years. And I think country music can have the ability to change as well. Let's all remember it was someone named Taylor Swift that started as a country music singer that actually, it was her songs that became very popular that actually got teenage girls to become interested in country music. Never forget that. Jonathan said, add some flavor. Jonathan has the tongue sticking out. I don't know, Jonathan. Let's go to some of the comments here. Oh boy. Janine says, ugh. Just because Beyonce is from Texas doesn't make her country. There are other better Black country artists than her. Wait a minute, let me say it like this. Hold on. Because Janine, this is how I would say. Just because Beyonce is from Texas doesn't make her country. There are better Black country artists than her. Notori says, glad Beyonce did a country song because she is bringing recognition to Black girls who are in the country today. Their stocks are going up, but the radio stations are still not playing their music. Thank you, Troy. Most music now is weak due to industry consolidation. Ooh. And thank you for, I said that one already. I think I said that. Okay. April says, I am a Black woman who has always liked country music. There's an Apple podcast called Color Me Country. I have followed this show for years and have been able to enjoy Black country artists. That is good to know, April. Thank you for letting me know about that. And I like new country. Like I think I'm one of those people that likes more like the Keith Urban, like Kane Brown, like, the more newer style of country music. I like that. Thank you, New York Varsity. Thank God for Eminem and Beyonce, who murked the concept of staying in your lane. Damn. And thank you for this as well. Kane would have gotten slurred if he did rap. Mixed race people don't always have the best of both worlds. That's a good point there, New York. JB says Naval Gate. I know, it's so funny when you think back on it. It's like, oh my God, this woman is showing her belly button. During that time, everybody, and think about it, like, all the teen like pop singers were just, that was the midriff thing was a thing. Spice Girls were showing their midriff and everything, So thank you, Courtney Smith. Country music is even more conservative than a lot of current gospel music. Ooh, that's interesting, Courtney. Thank you, Jay. The Pointer Sisters recorded the country song Fairy Tale in 1974 and became the first Black group to win a Grammy for Best Country Song. I can only imagine what they went through when they promoted the song. That's interesting. I didn't know that about the Pointer Sisters. I think they had that song called Jump, Jump for Your Love, Jumping, Feel Your Touch. Da, 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 da. Okay, anyway,